Throughout my playthrough of Echoes of Wisdom, I've noticed one major detail that seems to be consistent throughout almost every single town and settlement all across Hyrule. Cats. And as a cat person myself, I can tell you one thing for certain. Cats always have their secrets. Isn't that right, Batman? But what could the cats of Hyrule possibly be gossiping about? I went on a quest to find and interview every single cat in the kingdom, and let me tell you, I was not prepared for what I discovered. But before we dive in, I do need to mention the obligatory spoiler warning for a couple of cat-related side quests, and a special item that can be obtained after completing the Hyrule Castle portion about midway through the game. If you haven't finished the main story up to that point, you might want to save this video for later. If you have, or just don't mind the minor spoilers, let's continue on our journey to discover the secrets of the Hyrulean felines. Seeing as cats unfortunately don't speak Hylian, the first stop on our quest will mean finding the means to understand them ourselves. In Kakariko village, there's a man who, after struggling to find his feline friend who's apparently wandered off, tells about a special outfit that allows its wearer to understand what cats are saying. But the woman who bought it will only give it to us on the condition that we can convince a cat to move from its napping spot. After giving the cat a roasted fish, it happily complies, and we are able to obtain the mystical cat suit. A black cat version of the suit can also be obtained by scanning in any The Legend of Zelda series amiibo that isn't Link, Zelda, or Sheik, so like Ganondorf or any of the champions. Upon donning the suit, we are now able to ask the local cats of Kakariko for information on the old man's missing friend. Eventually, we find that the cat has fallen asleep on a tree just outside of town, but she returns home as soon as she learns that the old man is looking for her. The man is of course thrilled to have her back safe and sound, but does express the simultaneous frustration and adoration that those of us with cats are all too familiar with. His cat too says that while tree naps are nice, she is happiest being close to her person. Now that we have finally obtained the cat suit, the real work begins. In my travels, I found 23 cats scattered around the kingdom, and we've only really spoken with one. So starting here in Kakariko, there's a gray-striped cat laying on a stack of beams who tells us the Gorons often venture down to the village just to pet the cats. He mentions one bushy-eyebrowed Goron in particular who seems to have taken a liking to him. There are a few Gorons that can potentially fit the bill, like the Elders Gall and Sylve or the Goron who makes the fireworks, but my rupees are on Chief Darston. He just really strikes me as a cat person, you know? The cat we fed a fish to in order to gain the cat suit thanks us and says that the fish was quite tasty. She also mentions that she used to nap in the Kakariko well, which led to the villagers blocking it off for her safety. That was probably a good call considering what we know about the bottom of the well from Ocarina of Time. There's another cat napping on top of the windmill west of the Kakariko graveyard who wishes she could fly like a cuckoo, or at least catch a lift from one, to make getting down from her favorite napping spot that much easier. Although honestly, I'm not sure the wrath of the cuckoos would be worth the risk. Heading southeast of Kakariko, we find Hyrule Ranch, where the locals can participate in horse races and buy fresh milk. Inside the farmhouse attached to the barn, we find two more felines. One comments on all the different types of animals found on the ranch, while the one napping by the fire gossips about her people. She remarks that she heard the older gentleman telling his children not to ever jump off a moving horse, but saying so would of course only make her want to do it even more. In the far north of Hyrule rests a quiet little sanctuary neighboring a large cemetery. The cat inside comments how his person friend, the man who runs the northern sanctuary, is very nice and takes good care of him. He hints that other Hylians too enjoy talking with the man, and indeed, upon striking up a conversation, he's more than happy to provide any traveler with some useful information about the area. Directly south of the sanctuary lies the capital city of Hyrule and home of the royal family, Castletown. Just inside the general store is a white kitty who tells us her name is Cutie Kitty. She's quite proud of her name and welcomes us to call her by it as much as we like, and we most certainly will. The gray and white cat resting on the roof of the home that the young couple lives in mentions a wind that blows beneath the nearby bird figure, and she's the only one who seems to notice it. Sure enough, moving the statue reveals a secret tunnel. I wonder what could be inside, but that's an adventure for another day. We must press on with our quest into Hyrule Castle. Sleeping quite comfortably in Princess Zelda's room is simply the fluffiest of fluffy boys. He assures Zelda that he has been keeping a close eye guarding her room, but given his current state napping by the window, I'm not too convinced. Moving far south of the hustle and bustle of Castletown, we meet a small brown cat watching over Southorn Village from the roof of its general store. She hints that, in her experience, you can sometimes find new things when visiting an old place. Through this trek across Hyrule and all of the mysteries we've already uncovered, I'd certainly have to agree. To the west, we find the scorching plains of the Gerudo Desert. While stopping to cool off in the oasis, we meet a cat resting inside the tent of the mango researcher. She tells us that the mangoes being grown in the basement are actually toxic to felines, and expresses her dislike of the researcher for growing them. And honestly, who could blame her? Trekking to the other side of the desert, we finally make it to the home of the Gerudo tribe. The Gerudo are incredibly fond of felines, so we shouldn't have any trouble finding them here. The first cat we meet tells us that some of her kind around the kingdom may share helpful information, but she, unfortunately, is no such cat. I beg to differ, however. I think that is a very helpful tip. Unsurprisingly, given how much cats love to perch, 2 of them can be found on the roofs of buildings. The one in town mentions the lady who runs the shop is one of the best jewelers in all of the kingdom, and wonders if she could make him a sparkly toy. Just inside the store, we can find her workbench where she crafts these wonderful accessories. I've heard rumors she's even made a necklace for the Great Fairy herself. The final outdoor cat has perched himself on the roof of the palace. He questions what could possibly be inside the palace's treasury, since he wasn't able to make it inside before they patched the hole up on the roof. Upon investigating that spot, we are able to easily dig straight through to the treasury. The Gerudo soldiers guarding it weren't too happy about that, though. Inside the house central to town, we can find 6 more cats living with 2 of the members of the Gerudo military. The first comments on the number of cats in the abode, but states that there's always room for more and invites us to join. As lovely as that invitation sounds, our quest is not quite yet complete. The cat who's snoozing by the window complains about us bothering her while she's sleeping, so I suppose we'll leave that one be for now. Near the other window, sitting on a stack of books, this cat reminisces about her old friend who left to travel the world, last heading for Jabul something or other. I wonder if she's still there. One of the soldiers can be seen doting on her feline friend, which the cat very much seems to enjoy, as long as she doesn't touch his tail, of course. Another pair of cats are seen chatting near the front of the house. One is discouraged by her person not liking the gifts she had brought, while the other reminds her that their mama does not like, let alone eat, bugs. And I've gotta admit, I'm siding with the soldier on this one. Ooh. The final stop on our grand journey is the quaint, relaxing seaside village of Jabul Waters. Here, we meet a cat on the docks bragging about the village's unlimited supply of fish, though they admit that it wouldn't hurt to switch it up every now and then, too. We tried to offer him a non-seafood snack, but he must have been too sleepy to notice. On the beach sits a calico, watching her person fish up her dinner. She remarks on how unusual it is that a Hylian can understand her, but continues to tell us about her travels from the Gerudo Desert. Could this be the friend the Gerudo cat mentioned? She goes on to talk about how much she adores her person friend she met here in the village, but that despite the lady's best efforts, the recent catches she's brought home have been less than satisfying. The cat then asks us to deliver a smoothie to her person friend from her homeland in the desert, but she can't quite remember what it's called. I suppose it's back to the desert we go. The business scrub in the oasis was incredibly helpful and made us the warm mixed special that was requested. Upon returning with the drink, the calico informs us that it was indeed the smoothie she was thinking of and asks that we give it to her person. The lady, though surprised, thoroughly enjoys the drink and requests that we thank the sender for her. The calico gives a cheerful meow as if to say, "You're welcome," and her person goes back to fishing. After finishing this little detour, the calico then tells us that while some days she can be rather homesick, having her person friend here is more than enough reason to stay. And with that, we finally conclude our adventure. While some secrets may have been bigger and more helpful than others, speaking with the cats of Hyrule has definitely given us some valuable insight into the kingdom through the eyes of its feline inhabitants. Which of these curious critters was your favorite to talk to? Let me know in the comments.
What about you, Batman? Any parting thoughts or words of wisdom?
Until we meet again, give your feline friends all the pats for me.